What happened to Lori Paige? The question echoed across Tallahassee for nearly 2 years. We got an answer in April when police charged her father, Andrew Wiley, with killing her and dumping her body.
Every story has a face. Every face hides a truth. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let's uncover it. June 2023. A 12-year-old girl disappears from Tallahassee, Florida. Her father reports her missing. Search teams comb through neighborhoods, woods, and waterways. Nothing. Months turn into a year. The case goes cold. Then, almost 2 years later, a prescribed burn in rural Georgia reveals something searchers had walked past dozens of times. Small bones scattered in the undergrowth.
Then the question became why. Tonight we have an answer that's very tough to take. The state attorney says Wiley sexually assaulted 12-year-old Lori.
What investigators discovered next would turn a missing person case into a murder investigation, with the victim's own father in handcuffs. This is the story of Lori Paige. Tallahassee, Florida, June 2023. It's the kind of summer where kids stay out late, riding bikes until the streetlights flicker on. Lori Paige, a student at Griffin Middle School, should have been one of them. Instead, her father, Andrew Wiley, walked into the Tallahassee Police Department with a report that would launch one of the city's most agonizing investigations in recent memory. Lori was missing. 36-year-old Wiley told officers he hadn't seen his daughter. The details were vague, the timeline was inconsistent, but police had no choice. They mobilized immediately. Chief Lawrence Revel assembled search teams. Volunteers plastered missing person flyers across Leon County. Community members organized search parties, walking shoulder to shoulder through dense Florida brush, calling Lori's name into the humid air. The initial response was massive. K-9 units were deployed, helicopters circled overhead, thermal cameras scanning for any sign of the missing girl. Dive teams checked retention ponds and lakes. Door-to-door canvassing covered entire neighborhoods. Local news stations ran Lori's photo every evening. Social media exploded with shares and prayers. The community rallied with the kind of desperate hope that only a missing child can inspire. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. The Tallahassee Police Department conducted hundreds of interviews. They reviewed surveillance footage from gas stations, convenience stores, and traffic cameras. They followed up on tips that poured in from concerned citizens who thought they'd seen a young girl matching Lori's description at rest stops, shopping centers, or walking along highways.
Okay, you said it, Jacob. The state attorney told us that Andrew Wiley's actions mean the motive for killing Lori Paige was likely sexual assault.
Investigators never stopped watching Andrew Wiley. Something didn't add up. His story had inconsistencies. His demeanor raised red flags. Experienced detectives develop an instinct for when someone isn't telling the whole truth, and that instinct was screaming. You won't believe what a prescribed burn would reveal almost 2 years later. But first, you need to understand what the police were quietly building behind the scenes while the public thought this case had gone cold. While the public saw a cold case, detectives were constructing something else entirely, a digital timeline that would eventually unravel Andrew Wiley's story thread by thread. For 22 months, forensic analysts worked through Wiley's phone records, search histories, location data, deleted messages, text conversations, app usage patterns, the kind of evidence that doesn't scream its secrets immediately, but whispers them, one data point at a time. Modern investigations are won and lost in a digital realm. Your phone knows where you've been, who you've talked to, what you've searched for, and what you've tried to hide. Forensic analysts can recover deleted files, trace location history, even when GPS.
Attorney also revealed for the first time that Andrew Wiley was being treated for an STD at the time of Lori Paige.
Is turned off and build minute-by-minute reconstructions of someone's movements and activities. This wasn't just a missing person investigation anymore. Police were documenting a pattern, building a case brick by digital brick. The technology involved is staggering. Cell tower data can pinpoint a phone's location within a few hundred meters. Search history reveals intent and planning. Deleted photos can be recovered from cloud backups. Even encrypted messaging apps leave metadata trails. Every click, every swipe, every search query becomes evidence. Meanwhile, the calendar kept turning. Summer 2023 became fall. Fall became winter. 2024 arrived with no answers. Families gathered for holidays while Lori's chair sat empty. Her classmates moved on to 8th grade, whispered about what might have happened to their friend, and carried the weight of unanswered questions. The missing person posters faded in the Florida sun, edges curling, ink bleeding, Lori's face becoming a ghost on telephone poles and storefront windows.
The criminal case against Andrew Wiley is now over after he died in jail on June 19th.
The community held vigils. They lit candles outside the Tallahassee Police Department. They organized prayer circles. They created Facebook groups dedicated to finding Lori. Local churches mentioned her name every Sunday. People who had never met her felt the loss, the not knowing, the terrible limbo of a child who was somewhere but nowhere. They prayed for a miracle. They wouldn't get one. April 5th, 2025. Thomas County, Georgia, approximately 40 miles north of Tallahassee, near a property called Merrily Plantation. This is rural country, the kind of place where forest stretches for miles, where you can walk for hours without seeing another person, where nature keeps its secrets. Forest management crews were conducting a prescribed burn, a controlled fire meant to clear heavy undergrowth and reduce wildfire risk. These burns are routine in the South, essential for forest health, designed to mimic natural fire cycles and prevent catastrophic wildfires. The flames crawled through dry brush, consuming years of accumulated debris, palmetto fronds, fallen branches, and dense vegetation. And then, in the ash and exposed earth, workers saw something that made them stop. Bones. Small bones, scattered and fragile, partially buried, easy to miss in the thick undergrowth that had covered them for nearly 2 years. They called the authorities immediately. What happened next was painstaking. Forensic anthropologists were brought in from the state crime lab. The area was cordoned off with yellow tape. The scene was gridded and searched with archaeological precision. Every fragment was photographed from multiple angles, its position documented with
State Attorney Jack Campbell said the investigation is also over unless new information comes to light.
Coordinates, then carefully excavated and cataloged. But investigators had one advantage modern forensics always provides: the ability to identify victims even from minimal remains. DNA testing doesn't require much. A fragment of bone, a tooth, a small tissue sample, that's enough. The samples were rushed to the lab. Analysts extracted genetic material and ran comparisons against reference samples from family members. DNA testing confirmed what police had feared for nearly 2 years. They'd found Lori Paige. The discovery was devastating. But what came next? The arrest, the motive investigators revealed, and the shocking twist that would prevent a trial from ever happening, that's where this case takes its darkest turn. Stay with me, because the next chapter is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about this investigation. April 2025. Days after the discovery in Georgia, Tallahassee police surrounded a residence in the early morning hours. Officers moved in with precision, badges visible, weapons drawn but lowered, voices calm but commanding. This was the moment 22 months of investigation had built toward. When they emerged, they had Andrew Wiley in custody, hands cuffed behind his back, head down, saying nothing. The charge? Second-degree murder. Chief Lawrence Revel stood before cameras and delivered the news that had taken 22 months to confirm. The investigation, he explained, had involved extensive forensic phone analysis. Digital breadcrumbs had led investigators to build a case that connected Wiley to his daughter's death. He was the one who had reported her missing. He was the one investigators had watched for nearly 2 years. And now he was the one being charged with taking her life. The community reacted with a mixture of vindication and horror. Many had suspected Wiley from the beginning. Statistically, family members are always the first suspects in missing person cases, and for good reason. But suspicion and evidence are different things. Now they had both. But the full horror of the case wouldn't emerge until June 23, 2025, when State Attorney Jack Campbell sat down for an interview that would shock the community all over again. Campbell revealed what evidence suggested. Sexual assault was the motive. He spoke carefully, bound by legal constraints and respect for the victim, choosing words that conveyed the gravity without sensationalizing the tragedy. But the implication was clear and devastating. Investigators believed Wiley had sexually assaulted his own daughter. Campbell even suggested there was a possibility Lori had been pregnant, a detail so horrifying that it recontextualized the entire case. This wasn't a crime of passion or an accident that spiraled out of control. This was something calculated, something that had likely been happening for a period of time, something that ended when Lori became a threat to her father's secret. The prosecutor wanted the death penalty. Tallahassee police made one thing clear in their statements. They were not planning to arrest additional suspects at this time. Whatever happened to Lori Paige, investigators believed Andrew Wiley was solely responsible. The case was closed. Here's what we know for certain. Lori Paige, a 12-year-old girl, disappeared in June 2023. Her father reported her missing. For 22 months, she was gone. On April 5, 2025, her remains were discovered in Thomas County, Georgia, after a prescribed burn cleared the undergrowth that had hidden them. Andrew Wiley was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. Prosecutors stated that sexual assault was the motive. Before trial, Wiley died in custody from a pulmonary embolism. Those are the facts. But facts don't answer every question. What happened in Lori's final hours? How did her remains end up 40 miles from Tallahassee in the rural Georgia woods?
The defense was going to say that Lori Paige was seen after police said she died. Campbell, though, said the evidence against Andrew Wiley is strong.
Why couldn't investigators find her sooner, despite extensive searches of the area? And what exactly did those phone records reveal? The digital evidence that prosecutors said helped crack the case. Some of those answers are locked in court documents that may never be fully released to the public. Some are lost forever with Andrew Wiley's death.
Prosecutors considered charging him from the outset, even without recovering Paige's body. But a so-called no-body murder case would have been difficult.
And some may simply be unknowable, given the limited forensic evidence recovered from the scene. What's left behind is grief. A community that searched for a child and found only tragedy. A case that reminds us how investigations can span years, consuming resources and hope in equal measure. And a family that will never get the closure that comes from watching justice unfold in a courtroom, from hearing a guilty verdict read aloud, from seeing accountability rendered in real time. The Lori Paige case is also a stark reminder of the limitations of prosecution. Even when investigators know who's responsible, even when evidence points clearly in one direction, forensic reality can restrict what charges can be filed and what outcomes can be pursued. The difference between second-degree murder and capital murder might seem like legal semantics to outsiders, but it represents the gap between what prosecutors believed happened and what they could prove beyond a reasonable doubt with the evidence available. Child advocacy groups have pointed to cases like Lori's as examples of why reporting systems matter, why investigations must move swiftly, and why communities need to watch for warning signs of abuse before it escalates to tragedy. The time between when something happens and when it's discovered can mean the difference between evidence-rich prosecutions and cases built on fragments and inference.
Now, the state attorney told us he has, of course, heard the conspiracy theories around Andrew Wiley's in-custody death. Though he said he will consider any new evidence, but he also says he trusts the medical examiner who found the cause of death was natural and due to a pulmonary embolism.
Lori Paige was 12 years old when she disappeared. Nearly 2 years later, a forest fire revealed bones in the Georgia woods. Her father was arrested for murder. Prosecutors said sexual assault was the motive. Before the trial, he died in custody. Some cases end with verdicts. This one ended with ashes and unanswered questions. If this case shocked you, wait until you hear about Sakinya Thompson. I linked that story right here. Like, comment, and subscribe. Every story has a face. Let's keep uncovering the truth.